Hi, everyone. We're live. Welcome to Testkube Office Hours, our little space in the internet where we open our virtual office doors to answer our community questions and talk about Testkube, Kubernetes, and testing in general. My name is Ale. I'm the developer advocate at Testkube. And if you're new here, Testkube is a Kubernetes native testing framework for testers and developers that helps you orchestrate, execute, and display your tests and test results for your apps running in Kubernetes. Testkube comes with native support for multiple testing tools such as Cypress, Postman, JMeter, and K6, which brings us to our topic today, which is load testing Kubernetes with K6 and Testkube, for which we have a stellar guest, Leandro, DevRel and Performance Advocate at K6. You may also know him as Señor Performo on social media, but take it away, Leandro. Introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thank you very much, Ale. It's such a pleasure to be here. Such a pleasure an honor to be sharing the knowledge as well on these channels. As she very well mentioned, I'm Leandro, also known as Señor Performo in the internets, performance advocate, trying to share performance testing knowledge, crossing borders, translating into other languages, and doing the best to instruct and share the knowledge, not only about K6, but, well, K6 is an awesome tool to start working on performance, automation, and load testing.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us. And the main focus of this office hour will be to answer the most common questions from our community about K6 and load testing in general. Hopefully, you can take away some valuable nuggets on testing best practices as well. And yeah, why don't we get started already? So maybe, Leandro, you can tell us a little bit about an intro on what K6 is to start.
Yeah, K6 is an automation tool. It helps you to simulate actions from our users, and is oriented at being used on performance and load tests. Why do I clarify? A performance test is anything that gives you an indication of what is the performance of your application, and a load test is a specific scenario when you are trying to bring, not down, but put some stress into the application and see how it will react. K6 is open source, is code-based. I mean, you don't need any complex GUIs or download huge installers. You just can start writing your automations, do it through a command line command, and start automating and load testing or performance testing right away. It's extendable. You can use many components. It's a pretty awesome tool, light, powerful. You can write your automations in JavaScript. It translates them into Golang. So the tests are super light. You can push up your volumes pretty easily, quickly. And I mean, I could take over the whole time telling you the advantages of K6, but that's a brief sample of what it is.
Okay, awesome. And comparing it to other load testing tools out there, how is K6 different to them?
So I think I already spoiled a little bit some of those. I mean, a big advantage that I really, really like are those two. It doesn't depend on a particular GUI. It's not drag and drop. You write your automation script, whatever you have, a text editor. We like a lot Visual Studio Code. We have some components that can recognize what you're typing in. Notepad++. We also have an editor and another version, K6 Cloud. You can write your codes up there. You can record and paste them. So everyone in your team can edit them. And that's a bit different from some other solutions. Again, it's open source. Download it, start playing with it. It's super light. There are some other solutions that it was always a stress when I had to get it. So several gigabytes installer, waiting for there. If you have poor internet, oh my God, it started all over again. No, with K6 is snappy. You can download it all. And back to JavaScript. I mean, it's somewhat, most of the people in IT knows or moderately understands JavaScript. You don't need to be a rocket scientist in JavaScript to start building some scripts. So it's fairly straightforward from some other languages if you do not have the knowledge. Or again, if you don't know an interface that is drag and drop or lots of elements or visual cues, I think it's quite straightforward. And all this gives you a big advantage. You can have everything on a repository, put your tests, just pull them, clone your repository, start working with them, run your test local, send them elsewhere, someone else can run them. So the sharing here capabilities with your team, with communities being open source, lots of community support, interaction. It's extendable. You can, if it doesn't work in K6, you can create it, and on and on. I mean, there are several advantages. Again, I can keep talking about it. You may have to stop me if I get too excited about it.
No, that's what we want. We want you to talk all about it. But more concretely, we have this common question asked all the time. How do we know if K6 is for us as a team, as an organization? How do I know if it's for me, or what kind of use cases does K6 have?
So K6 is extremely powerful in several, or some of the most common automation or performance automation processes. You have to focus on what protocol are you going to automate. Nowadays, in the modern times, most of what we're working on is service-based, APIs, REST, all these type of things, microservices. K6 is excellent in automating these type of processes. When your application is based on services, APIs, all those type of things, it's incredible because you just generate a command to trigger the API, tell K6 how many virtual users are you going to be simulating, calling it at the same time. So it focuses on this protocol, and you can build very interesting scenarios with it. And this protocol, it's all over the place. The HTTP protocol 1 and 2, that most APIs work based on it. There are a few new things that are catching fire. The gRPC protocol, it's another one that natively is supported by K6. So out of these three main ones, I think you cover a huge percentage of where you should be automating your performance and load tests. And last but not least, it supports WebSockets, which also for bots, for chats, all these type of things that we have online nowadays is very important, and you can also automate in them. And some of the complex protocols or different automation types is not natively supported, again, because K6 is very light, is slim, you can get it right away. And we don't want to make it super heavy to your devices. If you want to run a load test with a few hundreds or even thousands of virtual users in a single box, you can, because it's light, it's optimized to be as slim as possible. But if you need to extend it, I mean, pun intended, you can extend the functionality, write your own extension, add a new protocol, a new functionality, a new output, whatever you can think of, you can do it. Or if you are thinking about it, probably someone else already did it. From K6, we generate several extensions for several functionalities. And the community also is very active. They often push and generate new extensions that you can look at and automate in them. So that's one. If you need something new, if you need the basics, which is, I think, the most spread all over the IT world, HTTP services, gRPC, and WebSockets, K6 is very good for you. And especially if you're in a continuous integration agile team, where not only the testers, because it's tough to say because I'm a former performance tester, and there was this line that divided you saying I'm A, I'm B. It's like this, be inclusive. Now we need to be inclusive in our teams. And K6 helps a lot there, because anyone in your team with a text editor, with the K6 program, that again is super easy, quick, and straightforward to get, anyone can start helping, generating automations, fixing them, running them. And this is awesome for continuous teams, because everyone in the team should be able to collaborate and care about performance in your application. And last but not least, I would say I mean, K6 integrates awesome with continuous solutions, agile teams, and command line. It was born in the command line, so you can put everything in your Jenkins, in your CI/CDs, ADOs, all those platforms, right? And it natively also sends out the results. Anything that you execute on a K6 run can be sent elsewhere so that you can share it, analyze it, have the whole team to look at it, put it in a Grafana dashboard, and help everyone to see what has been happening historically in your application in terms of performance, how those graph has been moving. Or if you are in the moment, live, running a performance or load test, tell the team, hey, we're running a big thing right now. Do you want to log in? Everyone can look at the metrics and see what is happening, or have retrospectives like, hey, this happened, this spike, do correlations. So it gives several advantages to teams that want to be sharing the performance, be more continuous, be agile, and be live and sharing with everyone the importance of performance testing.
Amazing. Thank you for that very in-depth explanation. And focusing a little bit on what you mentioned about teams that are maybe agile and want to integrate it into their CI/CD pipeline, but what would you say are the best practices, or what would you recommend for teams and organizations to build and design a successful testing system? Any tips, any do's and don'ts that you'd like to mention?
Well, there's one that whoever knows me knows that I try to draw the line into differentiating what is a performance test and that load testing is a sub-practice of performance testing. And it's for continuous integration. It's very important that you don't focus that much on those humongous load tests. Some friend told me to do an acronym on the ways that I was calling them. It's a BOLT, big ass load tests, that you are trying to bring down the system. And it's valid. Several times we need them when there's a Black Friday event, when we have like a big launch, an offer, a promotion. But most of the times, continuous and agile teams are not expecting those huge changes. And their system, if they are agile and continuous, is already in production. You know the performance. You know the current load is supported. So what do you want to do is have your K6 script that runs on every pipeline, not a huge load test. I like to call these ones the Chihuahua load test, tiny, shaky, cute, that will just shake that little component that you are pushing into production. And once you have this automation in your pipeline, it will run every time that you have a release. It doesn't have to be huge, heavy, just to know that the new requirement or feature that you have is having good performance comparatively with the latest release that you had, that is not breaking new things, and send it into production. Keep checking. And another super cool stuff that you can and should do is that little automation that you created, keep it running in production. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Don't make it a bolt. Make it a Chihuahua load test that won't impact. It will be just tiny running around and doing its little things, telling you how production is doing. So you can have also this K6 script continuously, let's say every 30 minutes, every hour, whatever period you define on key and important items of your productive environment, to know that the performance is good. This is really, really good to see if something that you just released is breaking production, roll back quickly, because this little test will tell you. Or if something is failing, like suddenly a service shuts down, that borderlines chaos engineering, something chaotic happened, you will be aware. Or if, services go down, suddenly for some reason your company became super famous and you're having a huge spike in utilization, everyone wants to go and see what is happening, you will get these notifications. Hey, something is spiking here. Take a look, pay attention, beware. Because other times when the system is failing or goes down pretty much, the users, your expectation is that the users will tell you, hey, I'm having an issue and it's not responding, it's not performant, your solution. Do you? Other than complaining on Twitter or going to Yelp or some of the pages saying, this application sucks, we just drop it, we just leave. and the owners never figure out that something like that happens. So if you have a K6 script running here and there, that's also very useful. So there are so many flavors that you can implement in performance testing, not only those massive load tests, but several things that can help you to keep up your solution. Those are like some misunderstandings and extra things that you could do to improve your performance practices.
I agree. And I thank you for that. I think that something that makes a huge difference is that you mentioned asynchronous testing, right? Just having them running in the back, and that will solve a lot of problems and avoid a lot of complications. And now going to focus on a little bit of Kubernetes, right? K6 is cloud native friendly, and I think you recently published a guide on how to run distributed K6 tests in Kubernetes, where, if I remember correctly, you basically need to clone a GitHub repo, use an operator, manually deploy to your cluster using, I think, make and customize. And then to find your logs, you would use, the usual kubectl logs command to navigate through them, which may add a bit of complexity to the whole process if we're talking about teams that may not be as versed, right, in Kubernetes, and they just want to go straight into testing. So what would you say, besides that complexity in the process, initial complexity, are some of the challenges of performing K6 tests in Kubernetes, or how would you navigate these challenges?
I mean, we fix it, as you very well mentioned. We have the K6 operator, which helps you clone the repository, as you very well mentioned, and gives you some control, because sometimes this applies a little bit to these tests that you need to do so much loading that you need to distribute them. A single box won't generate enough, because that becomes the bottleneck. I mean, these boxes have some capacity, so you need to distribute it. And at times, it's not a box, it's a container. You have it on pods or distributed. And at times, having those many elements floating around can get a little bit chaotic. I mean, there are several alternatives to not to deal with these complications. If you need to do a big test, a bolt, as I call them, you can, on one hand, we offer K6 Cloud. You can distribute this type of load and have it on multiple geographic locations. You can have it on many servers, or just like get out of that concern of maintaining your the containers, your repositories, everything. Like no. Let's just let the cloud deal with that. At ease with this. And another option is integration with Testkube, that you can just multiply it and let it run over there. There are some nuances to the control that you have to have when you have these multiple elements, like, okay, the results, what is going to happen at the end with the results? Where am I going to send them? You need like a centralized position to put all those results. And it depends if your scripts are tuned for just pass or fail, which is very useful in a pipeline. You can just let the output be reintegrated in your pipeline and you're good to go. So it depends a lot on what you're trying to do with these tests and why are you trying to distribute them. I have seen some other teams that, hey, I'm just creating a set of pods, some containers here with my solution, and I'm going to send as well some automations. It will be an instance. It's not production. It's just bringing it up, testing, bringing it down, and back to, can I keep rolling with this? So that also has some drawbacks to where is the information going to be stored, the results, how are you going to be checking this pass and fail criteria. And again, managing some of these, the performance of Kubernetes or of the containers, of everything that you're running, because many people do not think about that. Like, hey, how fast is it coming up? How long is it going to stay alive? Do I need to bring more horizontal, vertical? What am I going to be doing in this? Because the performance of the performance testing platform, it's also important, and we need to take care of it. How are we going to grow it? How are we going to support it? And as I mentioned earlier, You can do that yourself. We have the operator. You can bring the repository, bring it on your Kubernetes platform. But if you're not very well versed, which I have to say, I'm not very well versed in those things as well, and I'm like, okay, let's put it in the cloud. I just need this many users. I just need this many tests. Hit this environment. Be done with it. I at times it's like, oh, the container and the pod. What's the difference? And what do I have to do? And um, it gives a lot of advantage to leverage these tools in these ways, and I highly recommend it. I mean, in my previous life as a consultant for performance, there were some other solutions that you had to maintain the load generators. In this case, could be like your Kubernetes instances that you need to generate the load. It's a headache. Like, do I need to buy more servers? I mean, in the cloud, buy more instances, control them to know what is happening. Oh my God, I left one on with all the power that I needed for the load test, and then the bill comes. I mean, it's all sorts of situations that you can avoid just having this type of solutions.
Exactly. And it's good that you mentioned all of those challenges. Good news is that Testkube also does a great job at adapting K6 into Kubernetes and solving a lot of these problems, like storing these metrics for you, storing your test artifacts for you, where a developer or a tester that knows nothing about Kubernetes or just a little bit doesn't have to configure anything. You don't have to be nagging your only DevOps engineer in the team to do it all for you. You know, all you need is for them to set it up, and you can just focus on running your tests and looking at the metrics and the stats after you've run your tests. So that's pretty cool. Thank you. And another question that we have is, what other types of tests can we run with K6, like specifically,
Well,
besides
this
load
is
testing?
yeah. As I mentioned, it's not only for load testing. I already gave you an example of what is counted as synthetics, like an automation that you leave running even in production here and there, touching. Some of the other integrations is in the pipeline to do some smoke tests, like, hey, what I just integrated, is it breaking something else? Some of the extensions, we have a really cool one, Chai.js, which is used a little bit for TDD, which lets you do some validations, verifications into the functional testing realm. You can use K6 to functionally test your APIs. And I have been focusing a little bit too much on just APIs and the backend, which is where you should be doing. I mean, I'm going to repeat, you should be doing most of your performance testing in the backend. But it's important. We should not forget about the user, the front end. So we have also an extension, XK6 Browser, which lets you bring up a browser, check all the performance metrics that you will get in a browser session, like all the JavaScript, image loading, everything that truly happens in the front end, and get a little bit of RUM, real user monitoring. I mean, it's not a real user, but you will simulate what a real user will see, what it will experience. And as well, this is useful if you need to do a load test with just browsers. It's not recommended, but you can do it. And I have faced it. There are applications where it's all happy world piece that you can automate in the backend with API calls. But there are some applications that just won't let you do it. They are so weird and unique that you need to bring a browser. So that's another one that you can do very well with K6. Do browser automations. This is dragging a lot of attention because, like, wait, I don't have to deal with correlations, with IDs, tokens, sessions, all that. It's a headache for automating performance. Can I just do it in a browser? Yes, but handle with care. A browser is heavy, consumes so many more resources. And if you need to do big ass load tests, probably the browser is not the best option. They are not fast. They are not so efficient for a pipeline. So it's for given situations. But another one, mixing them up, what I just mentioned, Chai, JS, with browser testing, you can also do functional testing automation with K6 and send the results again to Grafana and see how your functional tests are doing, how your performance tests are doing. Mixing it, you can do several different types of tests. And just in the performance realm, not to mention, I mean, the classics, you can have endurance tests, super long tests that keep running and stressing your system. The spikes, I like to quote the now infamous Ticketmaster. When they release a huge sale, you will have a spike test. You suddenly, no activity, you publish the sale, goes to the ceiling, like breaks the system. You cannot even foresee what will happen with that many users. So Ticketmaster, wink, wink, no? So there are so many applications that you can solve with K6, not to mention as well some chaos. We have some extensions where you can start playing with chaos engineering, modify your application and see what will happen when the speed decreases. Not because, again, chaos is not only turning on and off situations. It's as well like, hey, what happens when my database starts to slow down? When my network connection goes from 5G to 3G, 2G, or something even less powerful? And some of those variations that can start affecting your application, you can figure out what will happen. And the list goes on and on. We have database integrations. We have another very cool thing are the outputs, that you can send the results to almost whatever platform you want, and then analyze them. Hopefully, I mean, we like a lot Grafana, that's why I'm there, and use any other platform to see the results, to analyze them, to see what happened with your load test, with your browsers, with your front ends, with your backends. I mean, you can tell I'm a little bit excited. All the versatility of things that you can do with it is quite impressive and gets a lot of attention, and especially so many of those that you can just put it in the cloud, start multiplying it. And especially, again, for the browser automation, some other solutions give you the limit that you can just have only this number of different test cases being executed for testing in a browser. Well, K6 doesn't have that many limits, so you can test many more things at the same time. Just be careful you're not just transforming a functional test into a load test by doing too much at the same time, but the versatility here is impressive.
Yeah, it is. And diving into what you mentioned, like all of the extensions that you can add, I think I'm going to cover a little bit of how you can truly harness it using Testkube and K6 with its extensions as well, and in Kubernetes, right? So going a little bit back on how our integration works, like I said, Testkube comes with out-of-the-box support for K6. What this means is that if you want to run your K6 tests in your apps that are up in Kubernetes, all you need to do is you create your K6 tests as normally as usual. Then you install Testkube in your cluster, which automatically comes with our K6 executor. And then you create a Testkube test of type K6. And that's it. By telling Testkube where your test is located, the source of your test, it'll grab it and it'll execute it, as well as provide you with all the logs, the artifacts, and stats for your executions. And when it comes to a specific extension that you need, all you need to do is fork our existing K6 executor, and then you create your custom executor, adding the Docker image for the extension. So it's pretty simple. And that's all you need to do to truly harness all of the features that Leandro is talking about that come with K6, right? So another question that we have before we close up is, how can I get started with K6 if somebody doesn't really has never used it? Where can they go to learn how to start writing their first K6 scripts?
So to start off, I will send you to the documentation. I mean, K6 has an extensive, great documentation. We have been told, like, and this is going to sound a little bit humble from my side of, oh, wow, your documentation is one of the best we've seen. I highly recommend it. I mean, it's really, really good. Covers a lot of things. We continuously, pun intended, are improving it, checking. We get comments like, hey, here you could be mentioning this. It's always as up to date as we can have it. The other one, we have a YouTube channel where we publish several videos where we explain how to, from the beginner steps of performance testing to the advanced topics. We have interviews. Our amiga, another DevRel here at K6, Nicole, has very good explanatory videos into how to do your first steps in K6 and in performance testing in general. We launched not long ago a platform in GitHub for learning in general K6. And let me pass here. I forgot to pass this one. The learning platform, K6 Learn, so that you can, we are constantly updating this repository with information, best practices to do, performance, K6, how to monitor, and we keep adding things, lots of stuff to learn. And well, there's another repository. Take a look of the K6 operator if you want to dig a little deeper into what Ale mentioned for specifically for Kubernetes. There's lots of stuff to get into K6 and performance testing.
Yeah, and to refer to how the K6 executor is also built in for Testkube, you can visit testkube.io/integrations, and there you'll find everything, how it works. And we also link you to K6 documentation, so you actually know how to start building your first tests. And finally, a question you already answered. They asked us what programming languages do I need to know, but you answered JavaScript, and that's it. Pretty simple. I would say pretty beginner friendly as well if you're unfamiliar with programming languages. But yeah,
I would say JavaScript basic. Again, you don't need to be a rocket scientist, and some command line. That's also important. I mean, some people don't even mention, but you need to know some command line, not only drag and drop windows. Some, not advanced.
Yeah, and that's another advantage as well to using to writing your tests with K6 and then deploying them and running them when you're working with Kubernetes. Running them with Testkube, we have a dashboard. So even if you're unfamiliar with the command line tool, you can just throw your QAs to click on buttons and just execute the test. So I think that's all we have for today. But thank you so much, Leandro. It was amazing to have you and all the valuable information and tips that you gave us. Where can we find you?
So again, for K6, if you want more information, k6.io, and there you can find everything about it. We have the YouTube channel as well, YouTube at K6io, where plethora of visual demos, information, interviews. And personally, you can find me in LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as Leandro Melendez or Señor Performo. And YouTube. We also push some stuff here and there. For performance testing knowledge, Perfights Español. I forgot to mention, in all your podcast devices, look for Perfights Español, and where I also keep pushing some best practices for performance testing in general.
In Spanish. Yeah, very important.
En español, sí.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. If you have any more questions, leave them and we'll make sure to address them after. Also, I invite you to join our Discord, where our engineers are super responsive. Remember that also Testkube is open source, so we're always open for feedback. We're open to contributions. Check us out. Give K6 a try. Give our K6 executor a try. Yeah. And you won't regret it. It's amazing, very powerful tool and open source. So we're really looking forward to what you think and growing more with you. So thank you so much. I'll see you on the next one.
Bye. Everyone. Adios.